This weekend, we stand and applaud as an AFL legend will break the all-time record. Welcome to the Sports Playbook. I'm Daniel. We are Australia's weekly sports news podcast covering both men's and women's sport, because at the end of the day, sport is sport. So here is the week in sport and everything coming up on this weekend. In the NRL, Jai Arrow retires from the NRL due to a motor neurone disease diagnosis. For Jai Arrow, he's better known as the Rabbitohs and Maroons enforcer, and he's unfortunately announced today, as we record this on Wednesday the 20th of May, that he has to step away from rugby league as he's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease, otherwise known as MND. The veteran forward has played 178 games for the Broncos, the Titans and South Sydney, along with 12 State of Origin appearances for Queensland over a decade-long career. And for Jai Arrow, he's just turned 30 and unfortunately he's stepping away from rugby league. So to Jai Arrow and from everyone at the Sports Playbook, we wish you the best of luck and hope that you get the support you deserve. In tennis, Carlos Alcaraz rules himself out of Wimbledon. The world number 2, Carlos Alcaraz, has announced that he will not only miss the French Open, but he's now going to skip Wimbledon. So that is 2 major Grand Slams that the world number 2 will now miss out because of a wrist injury. For Alcaraz, he is now looking towards the US Open in the back half of the year to make his return on the Grand Slam stage. But what this means for the next 2 Grand Slam tournaments is we won't have that rivalry of Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner going up against each other in the next 2 Grand Slams, being the French Open and Wimbledon. And in football, Arsenal win the Premier League after a 22-year drought. For Arsenal, they have won their first English Premier League title since 2004, and this has come about because Manchester City dropped points in the Premier League standings. For Manchester City, they needed to win against Bournemouth to make sure that it went into the final weekend. But that fixture was a draw, 1-1, which meant Arsenal was 4 points clear with 1 match remaining, meaning they have secured the Premier League title with 1 match still to play. In the AFL, Hawthorn will no longer play out of Tasmania. Hawthorn have played home games out of Launceston since 2001 in a deal struck with the Tasmanian government. But in 2027, they will play their last home games out of Tasmania. This is due to the AFL wanting the Tasmanian Devils to have primary focus of Tasmania for when they join the competition in 2028. And for Hawthorn, they have played up to 4 games a year in Tasmania, and they will have to relocate these games to the MCG. They will now make their new permanent home. In basketball, Australian boomer royalty is coming back to Australia. Joe Ingles, who has played multiple times for the Australian Boomers at the Olympics, is coming back to Australia to play in the NBL. He will be joining Melbourne United under a 2-year deal. And for Joe, he's played over 12 years in the NBA with over 810 games of experience under his belt in the NBA alone. And for Ingles, he is a 5-time Olympian and a 2-time bronze medalist at the Olympic Games. And now he gets to play in front of the Australian fans. And for Joe Ingles, he actually used to play in the NBL. So this is a full circle moment to finish off his amazing career. And whilst this is not confirmed, there is a potential for another boomer to join the NBL. And that other boomer is Paddy Mills. Whilst not confirmed, the NBL are trying to make a big play to entice the NBA legend to come back to Australia, as Paddy Mills is currently playing in Spain. In cricket, the BBL opening match to be held in India. According to reports, the BCCI, which is the Indian Cricket Board, have apparently approved the Big Bash game to be played in India. And as a result, Cricket Australia are currently sending a team over to India to explore this opportunity. And this all comes off the back of Cricket Australia's attempt to have privatisation, private investment being injected into the Big Bash. And this looks likely to fall over, with Cricket New South Wales and Queensland Cricket all looking to reject the motion for private investment. So you may ask, where will the game be held in India? And the reports are the game is set to be played in Chennai, and some of the clubs that are a potential for going over to play in this historic match is the Brisbane Heat, Sydney Thunder, and the Melbourne Renegades. Only 2 teams can play in the Big Bash opener, but what looks more likely is the Sydney Thunder will likely be one of those teams that are in that Chennai opening match. And that's because the Sydney Thunder had signed Ravi Ashwin, the Indian spinner, and he signed last year until an injury ruled him out. It is very likely that Ashwin will look to sign again for the upcoming Big Bash season. In NRL, the Vegas fixtures for 2027 have been locked in and confirmed. The opening day in the Rugby League calendar will be Saturday, the 27th of February in 2027. For those watching in Australia, that will be Sunday, the 28th of February. And the 3 games that will be played on this day will be the Bradford Bulls against the Lee Leopards, and that is the English Super League. Then, heading into the NRL main fixtures, the Parramatta Eels will be taking on the Gold Coast Titans. And the final match, and likely the primetime slot, the Melbourne Storm will be taking on the West Tigers. It is very likely that the Parramatta Eels and the West Tigers will have the biggest travelling fan base to the Vegas fixtures. So one to watch in 2027, even though we're halfway through the 2026 season. In football, one of the greatest Premier League managers is set to step down. Pep Guardiola will leave Manchester City with one of the greatest legacies in English football. Manchester City have won over 6 Premier League trophies since Pep has been manager since 2016. And how about this for a stat? 591 games with over 416 wins, and Pep has 20 trophies to his name at Manchester City. That is simply an astonishing record, and well done to Pep for an amazing career at Manchester City. And with that, that was the big stories from the week. So now it's time to get into the talking point. This week's talking point is the State of Origin teams have been selected. For New South Wales, the biggest decision to come from the teams being selected is James Tedesco beat Dylan Edwards to the fullback position. And for Laurie Daly, this was one of his toughest choices. As he said himself, Dylan Edwards has done nothing wrong for New South Wales. But for James Tedesco, he is set to make his 24th Origin appearance for New South Wales. He's not played in the jersey since Game 1 of 2024. He will surpass the likes of Andrew Johns and Jared Hayne when it comes to Origin appearances. For New South Wales, they have named up to 6 debutants to play in the Game 1 fixture. Some of these players include Tolu Koula, who is from the Sea Eagles and will be playing on the wing. Adam Fanua-Blake, and this has come about due to the international eligibility rules being changed. So Adam comes into the team. Victor Radley is set to make his debut for the New South Wales Blues. For Victor, he's another one that, due to the international eligibility rules, he comes in. But before Victor chose his allegiance to England, Victor was actually on the cusp of being a part of the New South Wales Blues. He was already in the camp back in 2019 when the Blues won back-to-back series. The other debutants include Blake Brayley from the Cronulla Sharks, Ethan Strange from the Canberra Raiders, Casey McLean from the Penrith Panthers, and Dylan Lucas from the Newcastle Knights. For Dylan Lucas, it's highly unlikely that he will make his debut for the New South Wales Blues, as he is 20th man. The biggest thing to know from last year's State of Origin series, for the interchange bench, there is 6 players that can be chosen. So of those 6 players, only 4 of them will get onto the field. The 3 that are highly likely to get onto the field are Cameron Murray, Victor Radley, and Jacob Saifidi. The battle between the last person to get onto the field on the 27th of May will be Blake Brayley, Ethan Strange, or Casey McLean. For the Queensland Maroons, when you look at their 2026 side, 14 players from last year's series have been recalled for the Maroons. One word comes to mind, and that's continuity. The Maroons always like to pick the same people that will do the job for Queensland. But in saying that, they have 4 debutants that are a part of this new team. Jojo Fifita from the Gold Coast Titans will be playing on the wing. Sam Walker from the Sydney Roosters, he will get his opportunity at halfback and will make his debut. Max Plath from the Dolphins will be playing in the lock position, and Brinton Nakora from the Cronulla Sharks will be on the interchange bench. For the Maroons, there are 2 players that will make their return to Origin football, and they are Dolphins duo, Selwyn Cobbo and Thomas Flegler. But the one big person that is not in this team is Brisbane Broncos fullback Reece Walsh. He's missed out on selection in a major moment for the Queensland Maroons. Kalen Ponga will get his start at fullback, and Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow from the Dolphins will make his start in the centre position. So what's on for this weekend? The first event is motorsport, and it's the Indianapolis 500, otherwise known as the Indy 500. This race is held at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, also known as Speedway in Indiana, and it is dubbed the Brickyard. The 2.5 mile rectangular oval track will host 33 IndyCar drivers, racing flat out for 200 laps across a grueling 500 mile course. For anyone else that uses the kilometre metric, that is 804 kilometres to be exact. For the IndyCar drivers, they will reach speeds of 370 kilometres an hour, which is faster than a Formula 1 car. In the AFL, the Geelong Cats will face the Sydney Swans on Saturday, the 23rd of May at 4:15 p.m. This is a massive top 3 clash for both of these sides. For the Sydney Swans, they will be looking to keep their authoritative stance on top of the AFL ladder. And for the Geelong Cats, they currently sit 3rd right now, and they will be keen to get a massive win over the Swans. And in the final game to look out for, it's in netball. The Melbourne Mavericks will be taking on the Sunshine Coast Lightning, Saturday the 23rd of May at 7 p.m. For the Melbourne Mavericks, they are holding on to 4th spot with only 4 rounds to go. For the Sunshine Coast Lightning, they are 1 win outside of the top 4. And this game is a must win to keep their finals hopes moving in the right direction. This will be a massive matchup with a finals feel, one to watch for netball fans. And before we go, this is the one thing I'll be watching this weekend, is the AFL record breaker. That's right, it's Scott Pendlebury. Scott Pendlebury will surpass the AFL and VFL all-time game record. For Scott, he will play his 433rd AFL game in his 21st season. That is some incredible longevity to be playing at the highest level for such a prolonged period of time. For Scott Pendlebury, he has some incredible achievements to his name. A 2-time premiership player, a 6-time All-Australian, 2010 Norm Smith medalist, and a 4-time Anzac Day medalist. And how's this for a stat? For Scott, he's played in front of 23 million fans over the 21 seasons he's played AFL football. He'll get to break this record in front of all the Collingwood fans at the MCG against the West Coast Eagles on Saturday, the 23rd of May. And with that, that is your sports week sorted. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll be back on Monday with the full wrap. So until then, follow the Sports Playbook. We are your go-to for fast sport news without the noise. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.